So I'm excited to be here together on this very fallish day. It's not technically fall yet, but we've got the equinox this Saturday, so we're moving into autumn. And autumn is known in some circles, including Chinese medicine, acupuncture, feng shui, and some Native American healing practices, and probably more that I'm not aware of, as the season of grief, which does not mean you have to have a horrible time and be miserably unhappy. But what it really does mean is that this is a very natural time to process grief and maybe process it at a new level. And I think it's probably really safe to say that we've all had some grief experiences that we maybe didn't have a chance to process fully. You know, often we feel like we can't afford to. We're like, I can't afford to fall apart right now. So what a beautiful thing to choose a time where you're going to meet that part of yourself and process it. And this season is particularly supportive of that. In Chinese 5-element theory, which again, acupuncture and feng shui are both rooted in, and all Chinese medicine, this is the season of metal. And metal connects to lungs as far as an organ, and grief as far as emotion. And at this point, you might be like, what is she talking about? There's an entire body of work that explains why this is so. I'm not going to go into that because your head would fall off and it would take us a couple hours. But if you're interested, I can give you, send you some links where you can go learn more about this stuff. But, one of the greater challenges I find of trying to process grief, if in fact you're generally feeling like, hey, but life is pretty good right now, I'm loving the weather, no one in my family is sick, this is awesome, I'm picking tomatoes, right? Is that it can be hard to access it. And so one of the things that I recommend is just getting a really great weeper of a movie or putting on music that kind of takes you to that place. There was a song, in fact, on the way in. It's kind of an old country tune, and it's wonderfully cheesy. And I normally just listen to it without any effect. And totally, when that last line came in, there's always the hook in country, right? I totally choked up, and I was like, there it is. And I was like, oh, yay. I was like, I'm gonna have to pull out some more weeper music too. So why is this important? Well, we always talk in yoga about stagnation. And that one of the main things that we are doing is moving stagnation. We're creating circulation in all the parts of our body, the parts that we're not thinking about or talking about, in our kidneys. Right? So it's not just, my thigh muscles that are tight from biking and let's get those moving, or not just my shoulder muscles from picking tomatoes. It is your spinal column and spinal fluid. It's your vagus nerve. It's moving out inflammation that we take on for all kinds of reasons, stress, diet, you name it. So when we are doing yoga, we are practicing wholeness and we are creating flow. So as we come into our practice today, I encourage you to notice what parts of you are feeling restricted, tight, just kind of gooey, like thick. I kind of sometimes think of like wet cement as the opposite of flow and fluid. When you find those places, tune in even more deeply and hang out there with breath. If you're in a position like a spinal twist, if you are trying to breathe deeply, the twist will reduce that last bit of inhale unless you demand that the twist give you some space. And that's what I want you to do. So in any pose, or if it's because we're holding something that's just too intense, you're going to hold your breath instead of breathing. So whether you're in downward facing dog or a spinal twist or forearm plank, I want us to be finding the deepest, most abiding breath that we can. And then I'm going to tune us in once more to this focus. We've been doing this for a number of weeks, scanning for unnecessary tension and primarily thinking about jaw, tongue, eyebrows, occipital ridge, those I've got muscles, and any little kind of chronic shrugs, because those all cost us greatly. I've talked about TMJ and all of that. And they're unnecessary. We don't actually need to use them almost ever. And so consistently scanning and seeing if I can soften there allows me to be in power without stress. And doesn't that sound great to do all the things that we do and be the powerful people we are without these consequences of feeling like kind of run over at the end of the day or waking up with a tight neck? Yeah, any questions about any of that before we come into our flow? All right, we're going to start first with breath, creating circulation and getting into our core. We'll be doing some compression and expansion breathing. So come on down to your back, have your block within reach. And you're first just going to lay flat and just start wiggling, just start moving, stretching your arms overhead. You might flex your feet and your hands and roll your wrists. Just see what's going on in there today. Oh, feel free to make noises. That's one of my favorite ways to move stagnation through. I think we're going to start with our sighing breaths actually before we get to compression expansion. So as you're ready, maybe it's again with an inhale, a deep reach. And then exhale, relaxing onto the mat with a sigh, letting that exhale come out the mouth. Good, slow, deep rising through the nose. This is your yoga for the day. There's nothing more you need to accomplish than this attention inward and attention to breath. And the rest will just come naturally. Oh, you guys sound great. When you feel complete, closing the mouth, allowing the breath to rise and settle through the nose. And we're going to come into a few points of introversion. So first, bring your gaze up and in towards that third eye point, lightly connecting the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth behind the front teeth. You might add that ujjayi throat contraction. And let us begin. So a long, slow gathering of inhale through the nose. And on the exhale, slowly, firmly bringing belly towards spine and then the spine towards the mat. You should feel your pelvis curl up slightly as a result. And you keep asking, is there more? Can you squeeze out a little bit extra? If you can whisper, you've definitely still got breath inside. When there's nothing left, soften. Allow your spinal curve to return as the breath flows up and up. And then at the very end, asking, is there more? Sipping in a little extra. You might feel it up into the clavicle and chest area. We're going to continue in this way. So if you find that being flat starts to create any kind of stress in the low back, go ahead and have your knees bent. You should still be able to feel the downward connection of the back and then the slight tilt upward of the pelvis. And throughout all of those compression breaths, I ask you to play with relaxing the neck, maybe rolling the head side to side, or whatever technique works best for you. What are you finding today as you're trying to activate that core body? Is it responsive? Does it feel present? Does it feel strong? If you're not sure, or you definitely want to connect inward, your own touch is the best path for inward attention. Bringing your hands perhaps to the lower belly, those muscles between the hip bones that are often unresponsive. That belly pops out. And if that happens, the problem will be that your lower back is actually not supported. So we want to make sure that it is. This is a great time to retrain those muscles. Yeah, you guys look good. I'm seeing some nice movement, some undulation of the body. Scanning the tongue. So we just want that tip of the tongue connected. The rest of the tongue is soft. It's like you're holding something delicate and delicious in your mouth and you don't want to squish it. Get as melty as you can, your face, neck, shoulders, as powerful as you can in the core, which by the way includes pelvic floor. So you might add that perineum engagement like you're trying to cut off the flow of urine. This will exponentially increase your strength and stability of the center body. Believe it or not, it even helps with balance, which we're doing some of today. So we're going to be here for another number of breaths, shall we say, probably at least another minute and a half. And I want to remind you that 10 minutes of focused pranayama or breath work helps replace an hour of lost sleep. It's that restorative. So I'm hoping you're not finding this boring, but I'm hoping to up your motivation anyway, to really stay with it, tune in, doing all this beautiful strengthening, all this beautiful oxygenation. Most of the time when we exhale, at most we're emptying 70% of our exhale. So this is such a rare opportunity to really cleanse and purify and oxygenate. Speaking of autumn, this dry weather has had me very aware of the need to hydrate more regularly. So I'm going to plant that seed with you. You know, it's not hot outside in the same way it was in the depths of summer. And that hydration is actually one of the most critical and immediate things that will affect our tissues and how resilient they are. As we continue, we're going to add rock pose. So the next time you're exhaling, invitation to tighten the whole body. And if you're okay doing it with the legs straight, that's really going to be a fun position. Nice corpse pose, then engaging belly to spine, spine to floor, and now tightening hands into fists, flexing the feet, squeezing the butt thighs, shoulder heads down. If you want, you can even turn it into a sit-up motion, looking at the feet, feeling that powerful downward motion of the belly is what kind of just naturally raises the upper back. On the inhale, you might relax completely into a lump or sweep arms overhead again. You can be rolling wrists while you're gathering the very last sips of breath. And again, exhaling into compression with or without a sit-up. And rock pose. Sometimes when our muscle tissues are tight, weirdly, one of the best ways to get them to kind of release and become more pliable is to tighten them more and then let them go. So bring, again, nice circulation to those tissues. Let's do one more like that. Is there more? Emptying, emptying, whispering, whispering. And releasing. Good. Bringing your hands up under your head. And there are a couple of different movements I'm going to invite you to do. One is with the fingers all kind of together right at the center of the skull, so that your kind of index finger arrives right in that beautiful little kind of cove at the occipital ridge. And it allows you to kind of support and press a little side to side inside of that V shape. And that's one area that we hold a lot of tension. The next position is with your palms on your head and your thumbs available to make some journey all around that occipital ridge. So kind of out to the side and down below and even up above, right up in that kind of valley, just up and over those occipital knobs, as I think of them, are often some of the sorest spots. Does anybody else feel that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm super sore on one side lately. But you know, when we text, for example, if we're looking down, there is a direct pull to that part of the cranium. So this is a beautiful way to kind of liberate some of those areas that do so much work. And that feels complete releasing. You can give yourself a big scalp rub if you don't care about your hairdo. And then we're going to come into release wind pose. So we'll bring the right knee into the belly. Shoulder heads activate down. Feet are flexed. Keep thinking about getting the feet farther and farther away from each other. And we'll take big belly breath. So hopefully that belly is touching the right thigh.
And this gives a massage to our ascending colon. You know, and our whole gut is such an important part, obviously, of healthy circulation and detoxification. So here we're massaging the beginning of that process. And when we switch now, left knee in, right leg extending powerfully, we're encouraging a massage of the descending colon. So if you're not flexible enough to get the thigh in contact with the abdomen, one thing you can do is take like a folded up towel or blanket, and that will deliver some of that contact. Or you could use your, in this case, left hand as a fist and kind of tuck it right in there between the thigh and the belly. And that might be enough to create more awareness and contact during your breath. Let's switch again and do the right side, and that way if you want to add that fist, actually it might be easier on this side, for example, right side, to use your left fist to come across the belly. I'm not sure. You have to see what feels most natural to you. Again, checking the neck is not doing any of the work. We've got no wings, no shrugs. And we'll switch one more time to that left leg. And we'll plant both feet for a bridge pose. We're going to do a slow in and out. As you're ready, on your exhale, use belly to spine, spine to floor. Let that curl the pelvis up. And that's the most natural way to rise up into your bridge. On the inhale, a very slow descent, really isolating the effort into the butt and thighs. No neck effort if you can help it. And again, exhaling belly to spine, spine to floor, rising through the hips. You might place a block between the thighs or just imagine that there's one there. And that will help get you into, again, that pelvic floor and inner thigh, which are so key for our strength and our balance, which, like I said, we'll be doing some fun work with today. Tuning into the breath, texture of the breath. You might be using that ujjayi throat contraction. Let's do one more, and then we will straighten our legs to release our hamstrings. I know they can get a little bit tight feeling during this process. Good, let's go ahead and take them both up to the sky, and I'm going to bend and straighten with my heels flexed. So I'm just sort of massaging that whole line, letting it know what it feels like to be more elastic. And then we're going to come down into happy baby. I like grabbing my big toes, but I know for some people that's not comfortable. You could go to the blades of the feet. You could use a strap across if you find that trying to reach your feet is hiking your shoulders off the floor. Sometimes people grab the ankles. I find that that's difficult as far as like getting enough grip for me, so it's just what works for you. Good, so anchor those shoulders down the body and think about slowly tilting your tailbone towards the floor. Yeah, and from there, once again, deep, big old belly breath down all the way into that pelvic bowl. I'm hoping you're feeling it in your back as well, again, in that kidney area. Yeah. And one of my favorite practices from here is half straddle. Again, I'm someone who's really tight in the hamstrings, and I love this. So I'm going to bring my hands behind kind of the knees or right above the knees and let my heels just relax down. And then I'm supporting with my right hand as my right leg extends out in that half straddle or a half V. You can point and flex and roll the ankle, and then the left. And depending on how wide your half V is, you know, it might even kind of rock you a little out to the side. That's all right. Enjoy the process here. Part of the value of this is that it's a chance to straighten the leg without being weight bearing. So it's you can kind of get deeper into like, where is the tension and can I encourage it to let go? All right, let's bring the heels together in active butterfly here. I've got them right near the butt. I'm holding with my hands. If that's too long of a reach, again, you can put a scarf or a strap around. And then invitation to come into a little sit-up if you want to. And kind of, I think of it as like a seesaw windshield wiper or something. Bring one toe, big toe towards your nose and then the other. And you don't have to get a lot of movement for it to be really a nice synovial fluid uptick in the hips. Then we're gonna release and plant our feet wide for horse riding stance. Arms come down. I'm using my upper arm 90-degree elbow bend and raising the hips. Anytime we're on our shoulders like this and our hips are up, we benefit from working the shoulder blades in towards the spine. It really helps protect and reduce pressure on that cervical spine. I like releasing my hip height a little bit and then reinvigorating. I feel like I'm just getting a really good range of motion massage through all of those connection points through the hips and thigh bones and so on. And then a slow, slow release on down, walking the feet together. And first we're going to stay flat on our feet and raise the hips without letting the thighs come apart. You won't be able to go as high as you do during bridge pose. And that's okay, because height is not the goal here. It's that inward pressure. Woo! And come on down. Now let the soles of the feet face each other as your legs settle into this more relaxed version of butterfly. Obviously, if this hurts or is kind of impinging anywhere, adjust, change it, or come out. As we add an active element to this, again, I'm going to work my shoulder blades in towards the spine, letting my palms rotate open towards the sky. And then I'm going to raise my hips just an inch off the floor. And I'm going to scan my body. How many places can I relax around this effort? And where is the strengthening happening? For most of us, it'll show up in that kind of deep inner thigh, groin, and very kind of low inner glute. And these muscles are a key part of our core strength and our stability balance. So I want to wake them up nicely today. We'll hang out here for another 30 seconds or so, maybe 5 breaths. Ideally, our breaths would each take about 6 seconds. If yours is longer than that, enjoy. If it's a lot faster than that, just see if you can slow it down a little bit more. Really honoring those little whispers of inhale and exhale at the end of each breath. When you are ready to come down nice and slow, let your knees settle towards the floor again. And then relaxing those legs straight and kind of out a little wide, perhaps. And it may feel good to rotate the feet in and out. That can be a kind of nice release for the thighs. We're going to plant the feet again for bridge. One last bridge bit of fun, at least for now. And we're going to add our foot hovers. You want to make sure your feet are not too far apart. We don't want it to be unnecessarily hard. We want to be able to keep the hips pretty stable. So we're dealing with subtlety here, subtlety. So raising the hips, I keep my hands on my hip bones as kind of an awareness tool. So that as I lift one foot just an inch off the floor, I'm noticing, did that hip drop at all? If so, can I stabilize it? Are the two sides different? If you're feeling any low back discomfort, make sure to kind of tuck the tailbone. That will reduce pressure into the low back. If you have a habit of kind of being a little sway back, you in general will take on back pressure and you won't be using your core in places where we really need to. So we want to learn that about our own habits. Slowly releasing, and one more time, let's straighten those legs up to the sky, do a little bend and straighten, bend and straighten. And then we'll plant the left foot on the floor for reclined pigeon. Right ankle crosses, heels are flexed as a knee protection. And then I'm going to raise my left leg off the floor. If you can't do that, no worries. You can still follow the other kind of clues, we're going to hug the right knee as tight towards our chest as we can. No wings, no shrugs, and then send it towards the center line a little bit. And my hope is you're feeling something way into that right butt cheek. It should be in the kind of piriformis area. It can feel pretty intense. A lot of runners and cyclists and other people take on a lot of excess tension in the piriformis, and it can contribute to just feeling so tight in our hips. So use this time, use your breath and your curiosity to love it up, finding just the right angles. Sometimes I'll take my hand on my foot and play with bringing my foot a little closer and letting my knee go away a little bit. I'll do a little, kind of a little windshield wiper exploration. When you feel ready to explore the other side, we'll switch. I often will straighten that, in this case, right leg that was getting the stretch, just to keep my hamstring from being too overactive. Crossing left ankle to right thigh, raising the right leg, and then hugging that left knee. Slowly moving towards the center line. Scanning head and neck and face and shoulders. Observing the effect of the deep abiding breath on the stretch. The breath almost always takes us towards our edge, that place of intensity that we are looking for. It's not the same as pain. The edge might be pretty darn intense, but we can welcome it and breathe into it like a deep massage. If we're not breathing, our body might read it as pain or something to tighten and protect around. We don't want that. And you might take the foot and do that little windshield wiper. One more time, let's straighten both legs up to the sky, bend and straighten, bend and straighten. And then we're gonna come up onto hands and knees. If you like spinal rocking, you just come into cross-legged and then roll it out. We're gonna do a little bit of core work that helps with balancing. And I know rarely do we think of balancing as anything but when we're on our feet. But I love this version of balancing as long as you can be on your knees. If being on your knees hurts, if you want to play in downward dog instead, although that's its own project. If being on your wrists bothers, go with this. Nice stable core, so my belly's drawing up into my spine such that I can clap. And then I'm going to ever so slowly raise right hand and left knee, hovering just an inch. And I'm going to practice breathing and staying soft in the neck and the face here. And then I'm slowly switching. And we'll lift left hand and right knee off the floor. And a couple of breaths, scanning the body, getting to know your own tension quirks. Slowly switching, good. We're gonna take the right hand and left knee a little off the floor, very slow, and then extend slowly and hold. So I've got my heel flexed, reaching for the wall behind me. Make sure you're not going above your hip or it will take you into a pelvic tilt that we don't find helpful. Good. On your next exhale, when it comes, return as slowly as you can. Oh, relax. Good. Let's in. So often I know straight, but they're a little bent. So you might try bending your knee a little more and then kicking with your foot like you're trying to hit something behind you. Good. Slow return. We're just going to go side to side now. As you're ready, you'll be inhale, extend right hand, left leg, heel flexing, toes are pointed down. Got it. Exhale, return as slowly as you can. Good. As we continue, we'll do a few more side to side. Notice if your chest of the supporting hand is dropping at all. If so, you need to draw back up and into yourself in that rib cage. Push the floor away, basically. Imagine someone's trying to get a boat or a train under you that's a little tall. And you want to give them a little more ridge space. No accidents. But asking, is there more? Is there more? You guys are doing a lovely job of keeping the neck long versus looking forward, which can be such a habit. We just tend to do it, but long neck is great, decompressing those vertebrae. And hopefully you remember, if we started on the right side, that's what most of us did, you'll want to finish with left arm and right leg. And releasing to table, if you want to roll out wrists, we're going to inhale cow, exhaling cat. This should feel like just a lovely stretch. You've already worked those core lines quite a bit this morning with compression and this balancing stuff. On the inhale, remember, you're not just kind of dropping, you're creating a very active suspension bridge, tailbone drawing back, heart drawing forward. Exhaling, you're tucking the tailbone, and my hope is you'll actually feel some of that lower glute inner thigh that we did during our butterfly hip raise. So as you tuck your tailbone, you're kind of feeling some of that central strength, I hope. If you don't feel it here, there's other ways we can get to it. So never hesitate to meet with me one-on-one. Sometimes when there's a part of our body that isn't strong, it's hard to talk to it or wake it up. We're gonna move to downward facing dog, and I like walking my hands forward a little bit before going there. I also usually have my hands a little wider than my shoulders. I always bend knees at the beginning and sometimes forever. And playing with one heel working towards the floor and then the other. Saying hello to the tension through that back line. Maybe you're feeling it in the heel or Achilles tendon, the calf. Maybe it's all in the hand. All right, we're going to come down onto our knees. So inhaling, knee down plank. We want our hands right below the shoulders. And if this is too much on wrists, you could just hang out in knee down forearm plank. But otherwise, we're going to do a little chaturanga and straighten. So I'm going to bend my elbows just a little and straighten. And I'd like you to observe very carefully what's happening in your body. You don't want any shrugs, any wings, no neck tension. Should be able to smile like you're just hanging out. And then as you're ready, we'll go all the way down. And let's take a moment to get soft, non-doer, rolling out wrists or whatever feels good. What are you noticing? What's it like to be still, to breathe deeply into the belly and let it resonate into your low back? Nice work. We're going to be doing a little back and forth between forearm plank, either knee down on feet, and some work into our kind of airplane arms. So we're going to start with forearm plank. If you don't do this pose regularly, I would definitely suggest knee down, and then you just transition to feet if it feels like that's appropriate. Shoulder heads anchor down, neck and mouth and eyes are soft, and then you just kind of tuck the tailbone and shorten the front of the core muscles. You should feel pretty darn strong and stable. If you want to move to feet, then make sure you're imagining squeezing something between the thighs and that you're getting those thigh bones to the sky. And we never want to sway. If our hips are swaying low, we will feel weak and it'll be really hard on our low back. See if you've got 3 more breaths with integrity. And by that, I mean, again, you're not grimacing, you're breathing deeper breaths, not just a shallow little sip. And then releasing, relaxing the arms, taking your head the other direction. We're going to be bringing our arms straight out to the side, palms down. So a little, let's try to think about what kind of plane this is. There's another word for it, like a glider plane. So resting your forehead, shoulders activate all the way down the body. It's like you're trying to put your shoulder blades in your back pockets. Anchor the pelvic triangle. So again, you should feel that elongation of the low back and shortening of the front body. Then simply raise the hands off the floor, reaching for the opposite walls, and breathe. Couple breaths here. So I've not lifted my chest yet. I'm just staying, hanging out, isolating that upper back, checking in with the breath, and then if you like, adding your extension. But I'm hoping what you got to feel is that you can get a lot of work into your back muscles without doing the extension, because sometimes that's just too much for people's low back. Yeah, getting some really good strengthening going in the back, upper back there, across those shoulder blades. We've got a number of muscle groups and so on that are often just so sore and tight from having our arms in front of our body all the time. Let's take one more breath, see if you can get those arms a little higher. And then release, relax, turn your head to the side. And a reminder, you can sigh anytime. It's just, you don't even have to know why, but it is always a marvelous way to move some stagnation. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna come into forearm plank again, and either knees or feet, up to you. Once you're there, if you're wanting a little more intensity, you can walk your elbows forward, and I mean like a half an inch, not inches. You can also go a little side to side, like a little shimmy. And when you do that, there's an opportunity to feel again some of that diagonal work that we got when we were doing table and releasing the limbs. Okay, good. See if we got 3 more. And think about that inner thigh squeeze if you're on the feet especially. Think about that xiphoid process rib cage and drawing up and back into yourself. And as you are ready, release, and please come directly into jet airplane. So you've got your palms facing the floor, but now the arms are down closer to the body. And as you're ready, we'll take flight. Maybe you want to just release the arms first. And the body. See what happens in your system. Breathing, noticing. And when you're ready, release and press back to either child's pose or downward facing dog. Child's pose will give you that nicer low back stretch. Downward facing dog will keep that heart rate going and be a little more upper body work if that's what you're looking for today. Let's find 3 very thoughtful breaths. It might be sighing breaths. It might just be a soft, slow release through the nose. And then as you're ready, we're gonna end up at the back of the mat in ragdoll. So if you're in downward dog, walk those hands slowly back. If you're in child's pose, just kind of navigate to your feet and walk into your fold, knees bent, torso hanging. You take your hips a little side to side, let your torso sway. Sometimes you can get some interesting information into the ham, IT bands, and so on. Nice deep compression and expansion breathing. Let's do one more. I'm inviting you to bring your hands up onto your thighs as you inhale and sit to chair pose. I'm just going to hang out here a moment. You could be in bar stool, you don't have to stay low. Then on a long inhale, root and rise, glute squeeze, thighs active. And prayer hands. Beautiful scan again for unnecessary tension. And we're going to do a little balancing fun. What's I think fun and interesting about this is to notice what lights up in your body, but also what's sore later maybe. So we're going to take the right foot in front of the left, and I want to invite you to plant the big toes and then spread the other toes best you can. And I've got them in direct line. Now, if this feels unsafe and you're worried you're actually going to fall, you could go ahead and be near a wall. Otherwise, what I'm hoping we'll get to notice is a lot of wobbling in this, but no falling. I want you to notice perhaps a little change. What happens if I ask you to imagine you're squeezing like a piece of paper between your thighs that you don't want to go flutter away? and use that to then press down more firmly through the ball of the big toe and big toe. And if you want, you can have your arms out to the side. Nice, slow breath, even if you're wobbling. Nice, soft face, even if you're focusing. And then let's take the left foot in front of the right. You can, of course, again, play with your arms, whatever feels appropriate. You're going to be getting a nice extra stretch through the chest, and so the arms, palms rotate to the sky. Notice again, what happens when you squeeze or don't squeeze that piece of paper? It just gives you a feeling of more stability. I definitely feel like if someone were to come and push on me, I'd be less likely to fall over if my thighs have that inner squeeze pelvic floor. Let's go to the right foot in front of the left. We'll do about 3 breaths. Left foot in front of right, about 3 breaths. It's about 2 breaths for me, but I know in general I'm a bit slower, so we'll go that next foot forward. Then we'll have 1 more after this, of course. How's it feeling? Hard? Interesting? Fun? Easier as we go along, because our muscles are waking up. They're like, oh, you mean me? Last foot. Well, hopefully you're finishing with your left in front. And just for a little added fun, go ahead and close those eyes. Good work, folks. Let's roll out those ankles. So it's interesting, my mom was given this exercise by the PT that we've been seeing to specifically help with balance. And it was so fascinating to me that she shared that her entire foot was so sore the next day. All of that proprioceptive work. And my mom is like, you guys know her, super active. She walks all the time. She's a gardener, she bends, she can, So this is not somebody who does not use her feet. So to have that happen for her, I think is so telling that we need exercises that challenge us to raise our intelligence in ways that we won't on our own, right? So we have to remove our capacity. And in this case, it was being able to be on 2 feet and bringing that center of balance to a smaller line, right? So I'm going to invite us to do a little bit more of this, and hopefully your feet won't be too sore. But we're going to do tree pose. Haven't done that together in a while. We're going to bring our feet all the way together, kind of reducing our width of stance. Anchor those big toes. See if you can raise the other toes. And if you can't, don't worry about it, but just know that this is a place we'd love to up our intelligence, to be able to talk to the feet. And notice if you're using your hands to talk to your feet. Isn't that the funnest? I love that. Shazam, I'm talking to you. See if you can spread those toes out. So this is going to give us a broader balance plate or what have you. But also now I can feel effort in my feet. Do you guys feel that? That spreading? It's just like with the hands. If your hand is, your fingers are just together and not doing anything versus spread. Now you're using the muscularity of your feet. Let's keep our hands on the hips for the moment. Then rise up, and without changing anything, keep that like tree trunk squeeze of the inner thighs. Go ahead and bring 1 foot into kickstand. Then notice if anything changed. If you cocked that hip out to the side or your foot got floppy. Bringing your foot up to the calf, perhaps, never on the knee. And see if you can keep, again, that inner squeeze. Then, once you're ready, add arms. Scan the body for unnecessary tension, maybe add a soft smile. If you'd like a little extra challenge, close your eyes. Find a beautiful thread of breath that ties it all together. No matter what the movements are, stillness or wiggling, the steadiness, the thread of breath. We'll slowly return. So feel free to love up that standing foot. Sometimes it feels really good to curl the foot under and get a nice stretch through the front. We'll do the other side. Good to see you guys smile. Okay, remember, spread those toes, leave that tree trunk pelvic floor, bring the foot into kickstand, or maybe up to the calf. Remember, if you're doing the calf position, really flare those toes out away from the leg. You're not using your toes to grip. You're actually engaging and spreading them still in midair. And that'll allow the balls of the foot and the heel to be very connected. Wherever you're at, again, bringing that thread of breath to the front of your attention. Softness in the mouth. Closing the eyes, perhaps for this last couple of breaths. Why not? Give as much control as you can release. Good. We're going to go sideways on our mat. Let's face the east here in the Family Learning Center. Just going to go side to side. I like starting with hands on my thighs because then I know, like, if there's something really intense all of a sudden, I can support myself. And I'm going to give you kind of a couple of options here to play depending on what your body needs. If you're feeling like you just need some good kind of cardio, you could do almost like a skate ski or a rollerblade. If you're adding the arms, a word to the wise, the front arm is just barely going to the left or right of center. A lot of times people want to go way over to the side, and if you check in with yourself, what happens when you do that? There's unnatural alignment and rotation in the thigh, hip, knee. It's not helpful. So if in front of you is noon, your right hand is going to 11, your left hand is going to 1. Okay? So that's one option, is that nice cardio, that other arm is back there counter reaching. The other option is just very slow, and you might do a little of each, very slow side to side, ideally with the hands on the floor, or you can use a block or a bench. And practicing being belly to spine in both of these can really transform the experience. Always coming from the center, and breath will make us so strong and also much more likely to release stored tension. So in my fold here, I'm going to make sure now to bring my hands to one side, but not past the foot. Okay, so they're actually going to be inside of the foot because I'm going to try and use my core to fold more deeply, bringing my elbow down the inside of the calf or the shin. 3 compression expansion breaths. And as you're ready, the other side. And make sure you're not feeling any funky torque on the joints. This should just feel like good muscular stuff. And then slowly back to center. I'm going to walk my feet in, so I'm kind of in the more of a squat dimension. I'm going to bring my hands to my thighs and inhale into my squat. So like a chair, but your feet wide. Got it. Check and see if you can get your pelvis to tuck a little bit more, so you're in that core body. You got it. Now inhale and rise, big glute squeeze. Exhaling, prayer hands. Scan a moment, notice if your ankles need to be rolled out, we'll go for it. Otherwise, we're going to come into goddess pose. So goddess pose is basically kind of squat width for your feet. But I like to make sure that my feet are whatever the natural alignment is for my joints. So I just do a little hop, and however my feet land is that. I'm not trying to do a plie, I'm not trying to keep them parallel, just natural. You got it. Again, nice belly to spine, so like the tailbone is kind of sinking towards the earth, is the way you want it to feel. We'll add our goddess arms, so it's like goalposts, another way of thinking of it. And check that you feel pretty neutral through the spine. The chest is not
projected out, spreading our fingers. And please remember, you do not have to hold at a particular height. You might be slowly pulsing a little up and down. You might come up and straighten the legs and turn. But we're going to do about a half a dozen deep, slow breaths. If you'd like some additional balance challenge while we're doing this work, you might slowly raise the heels off the floor. And you might return them. You may not have to be holding for the entire next, say, 2 or 3 breaths. Let's bring those feet in and love up those ankles, rolling up, curling the foot under. Goddess pose is a kind of a neat pose to kind of get into your heart and listen to what's going on. Partly because of just building intensity. I'm curious how many of you maybe notice when things get intense, maybe you get a little like, oh gosh, you know, like I don't know if I can keep holding this, which of course you don't have to, right? But it's sort of interesting. Physical intensity can sometimes bring us to a place of feeling a little bit scared or a little bit vulnerable. And so it's a neat place to kind of meet that part of you and to just notice I'm safe by the well. Sort of like when we do breath blocks, we acknowledge I can breathe whenever I want to. So let me then connect with my own discomfort, right? So we're gonna do one more balancing posture, which is tripod dog. And that does get your wrists involved and shoulders and so on. So if you're like, you know, that part of my body would not appreciate that today, you might want to redo the table with limb extensions that we were playing with. You can even play in that with trying to get to the point where you're actually only on one limb. So you come into your limb extension and then try to remove the other hand and play there. And that might be just less intense. You guys game? All right, let's come into our downward facing dog. And the key is here, get everything slow because we don't want to be compensating or have some big drop. So first downward facing dog, let's take a big inhale, big exhale, belly to spine. Get those hips up and back, and most importantly here, your chest into your back. Do not be arching and hanging. Take your left hand and bring it back towards your foot. Don't move your body, just let your hand come back, fingertips touching the floor, and the fingertips facing the foot. So not facing your front of your mat, facing the back of the mat. Then slowly lift your right foot just an inch off the floor. Okay, so we start with a hover, heel flexed. And then if you want to continue, you take that leg higher. And you want to keep that leg very straight. You're reaching from hand to foot. If you wanted one more breath here, see if you can bring belly to spine and fold your torso a little closer towards that left leg. Then you return the foot, then the hand, and then your choice, child's pose and love up wrists. Or if you're just like, man, I want some dog series, you certainly can, but I know my wrists usually want to break after that. You can do a little wrist break and then some flow. How did that go? Any questions? Any like, I'm not sure how I'm doing it? I was upside down, so I didn't see you. All right, let's do the other side. As you are ready, powerful core support. Make sure your feet are not very far apart. I should have mentioned that. Remember, they can be bent. They don't ever have to be straight. Shoulder heads are rotating out away from the ears. Bring your right hand back. Do not let your hips go to the side. I noticed mine just wanted to. Send that left foot a little hovering off the floor and then leg flying. And pause and breathe and notice differences. Let your head move if you can, relaxing through it. Looking good. Enjoy the wobble, by the way, that quiver. That is your muscular intelligence firing. It's all good. And when you come out, inviting you to your belly, perhaps you want to just rest. Perhaps you're ready to move into a little quadricep stretch, which might feel really good after some of this thigh work that we've done, right? Please be sure to support yourself as you enter the pose. So my preferred way to do that is to bring, for example, my right forearm across the front, anchor the pelvis, and then to raise my chest so that I can slowly, with control, reach my ankle. I'm not flailing, I'm not going to the side. It just makes it a lot more easeful. Sometimes we need a strap. I'd be happy to help if anybody wants that. And then you might settle your forehead to the floor and just breathe and tune in. If you're not getting enough of a stretch, well, when I said the floor, I mean your forearm, that's part of what I like about form, is that then your nose doesn't get squished, right? You can breathe. If you're not getting enough of a stretch, imagine you're trying to point at the wall behind you through your knee. And that will usually bring the knee a little off the floor and give you that depth. And of course, as you are ready, switching. And if it feels appropriate in your body day, you might want to release that leg, but then come into both hands on ankles for bow pose. If bow pose bothers your low back, you might want to not do it. Otherwise, mainly make sure again that you've got that pubic bone connecting, that pelvic tuck that elongates the low spine. And you're simply pressing those ankles back into the hands with the strap. And sometimes it gives us a nice opening through the shoulders. If it doesn't feel good, edit it out. I love that about yoga. It's just this endlessly versatile practice, and it should always be based on noticing in the moment what our body welcomes. And our body can welcome a lot of intensity. And the breath usually tells us. When you are complete, I'm going to ask you to notice what your body might want. Some of you might go to child's pose again for that lower back stretch. And then is there anything else that will just even out your body and prepare it for a deep, restful integration, as I think of kind of our Shavasana or yogic sleep or yoga nidra. You may want to do the block under the sacral triangle, right? You know that that can be very, very helpful for letting any low back tension release, as well as opening the front of the body. You can do it with knees bent, and then we can also play with the legs draped. Some of you really enjoy and appreciate the support of the object under the bra strap. I usually recommend either something like a rolled up towel or like this little beanbag guy versus like a full-on block. Or if you're going to use a full-on block under the bra strap, to then make sure you've got something under the head so that you're not finding a compressed spine or feeling low back pressure, etc. Wherever you are, asking you to tune in once again to really slow, deep, and wide breath. And the breath is what tells us what's true. And so particularly as we're entering this integration time, we want the message to be along the lines of I am well, I am whole, I am safe. Is there any other message that you'd like to send to your system? We'll be coming around once we are in our resting posture. I'll be coming around and offering shoulder press if you're in a position that can welcome that. Is there anybody who wants me to not come? Thank you. Take all the time you like in journeying there. You might, if you're on your back, work your shoulder blades again a little in and under, maybe the palms kind of rotate a little bit. You might roll the head side to side.
finding greater release. Then we let go of all breath control. Let the tongue just relax. As if we are a baby finding a beautiful, restful sleep. And as you are sinking in towards that inner world, you might choose to see with your mind's eye any part of your body in particular that could use healing, prana, life force. Each exhale, sinking more deeply down, down, and down. And to notice the presence of your breath in your body. Please scan your practice, noticing anything that felt particularly useful. It might be something that felt particularly difficult. It'll be interesting in the coming days to just notice as well if there's anything that's kind of sore or lit up in a good way, that we woke something up that maybe does not get used or activated. It's a marvelous time to thank yourself for getting to the mat. I salute you, I respect you so much. My oh my, you all looked so strong and peaceful. Really incredible. So I hope you felt powerful in your body because that is how it looked. It's so fun to tap into that power, isn't it? Like, yeah. So I hope that supports you as you move throughout the rest of your week. Kind of reminder and invitation as we come to this topic to make a date with grief, whether it's a good movie or some really poignant music or talking with someone close to you about a loss or a time that was really hard, and letting yourself dip in and feel it in some new way. The idea is that any stagnant energy takes up space inside of us. So what we want is to create more present momentness, more flow. We need to make sure that we are getting regular clear outs. Blessings, everyone. Namaste. Look forward to seeing you again soon at the mat, maybe at Third Mountain Thursday before it gets too cold, maybe at our retreat at Third Mountain on the 30th, maybe right here. We're gonna have a cozy winter too. It'll be great. Thanks for joining me.